Hey viewers, this is Random Stuff with Alex Hughes, and today I think I'm going to talk about how perception creates reality. So, the idea of this, I didn't come up with it, but it's one of those things that I had discovered a few years back when I was doing the mental health journey, and it's this idea that the way you look at things is going to be shaped and remembered later on. So, if you think about things, um, how you see a stimulus, right? You go out. Let's say for example, give me a story. You go on the bus, and you're just seeing who comes to the door. Curiosity. You see this person coming, and let's say they're close to the right, and let's say you're in an area where there's homeless people, and so by looking at somebody, let's say you perceive them because of clothes and their outward appearance that they're homeless, but simply by just what you see on the outside. But you never really ask them in person. You never go up to the person and say like, "Hey, are you homeless?" You never really know for sure. So that's your perception of who that person is. But you don't really have the facts. You only have what you see on the outside. So the idea is that your perception of this person creates the reality in which you live. So you could have this idea of what a homeless person looks like, um, you know, and then each time you go out, you kind of automatically label something maybe in your subconscious mind that, okay, this person's homeless, just based off of the way you see somebody. However, if you never go up to that person and ask them directly, are you homeless? Then you're just assuming. So this idea came to me especially when I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and panic attacks where I would find meaning in all these different things, and then I would connect it to the thoughts in my head, the anxiety, the themes that I had. So I was perceiving my reality as threats. So I was seeing threats all over the place, like, oh, this relates to my thoughts. So then it would build and it would build and build. It's like a bookmark, right? On Chrome, you're on Google Chrome, you find something interesting and you bookmark it. And that's what your mind is doing. It's trying to assess threats in a, fight or flight, and it's a survival mechanism. So you're kind of looking out for things that you're perceiving as a threat and keeping that in mind so that way the next time you see it, then you'll perceive that the same way. You'll see it as a threat, and then you just build up more and more anxiety. So the reality is to understand that the way, how are you looking at things in the world around you. And so one thing I started to notice was that I was perceiving other people as, judging me. And this subconscious mind, I'd go out, travel, and then I guess, I don't know, self-consciousness or something. Being self-conscious of the way I look or the way I'm perceived based off my clothes or outward appearance. And I think, to be honest, I can thank that to going to university, because once you get to the university level, this idea is of identity, right? How you look on the outside, that's how people are going to treat you. Usually it's victimization, like, oh, you look that way, people are going to judge you based off of that. And so it's all about how you perceive your reality, though. You could make yourself seem like a victim. You could identify yourself as a victim of society and how, oh, people are judging me because I look a certain way. I look like this type of person. So that if they are, how do you know that though? That's the thing, is that if we live our lives with this fear and uncertainty, which I lived most of my life in, that I always perceive things as being anxious, being scared of things. This bad thing's going to happen. This is going to happen to me. This is, um, I'd always expect the worst out of situations, and so this fear and anxiety can drive us to really seek out um, other threats. So then we develop a pattern of thinking that's like, oh, this is a threat, so this is a threat. And so you could go out in public like myself. I've traveled all over San Diego County, at least the coast, coast and whatnot. And but these thoughts started to appear about like, oh, what if these people are judging me based off the way I look, and then the thoughts started to be like, you know, in the subconscious mind, this idea of like, oh, you look this way, they're judging you because of that. The type of stuff you see on university campuses. The your identity. And that's and it started to get in my head because it's like I'd get anxious, and I'd feel like uncertain, and these thoughts like, oh, you shouldn't go here because they're gonna judge you for the way you look, and it's like, it's crazy how these thoughts start to, it's like uncertainty builds, and then your subconscious mind is powerful, because then it becomes almost like the reaction within yourself. Maybe consciously you're not thinking that. Consciously, you're like, oh, I don't, that's BS. But it's just the subconscious mind that has a lot of control. And so, now I'm starting to realize perception creates reality. Once again, is that it's all about how I perceive other people's actions, right? Like, let's say somebody frowns at me. Is that because of the way I look? Or is that because they're having a bad day? Or is that because there's something on their forehead and they're itchy? Is that because they're trying to exercise their brow line? Is that because? So the possibilities are endless for every reaction that you see in every sort of stimuli, right? Like, let's say somebody cuts in front of you. You're trying to walk across the street. Somebody zooms past you. Is that because of the way you look, or is that because they're trying to get to emergency? Is that because they're impatient? The possibilities are endless. It's the fact that we assign this kind of victim mentality of like, oh, they're judging me because of the way I look. That's why they're not giving me the same amount of respect. I disagree with that. I think there's so many different variables that happen in our reality that unless we ask someone directly why someone so did this, what is your motive, then we're just pulling stuff out of thin air based off of our filter, right? Our lens of how we view the world. This kind of biased mentality, and that's the concern, is that it's almost like a brainwashing thing. That's what I was concerned when I went to college. I went from 12th grade, graduated high school, and I saw the brainwashing start in 12th grade, and then once I got to university, I knew at that time, especially the time I graduated, which was a very heated time to say the least, I knew that there was going to be brainwashing when you go to university campus. However, it seems like they've done a great job with subconscious training as to the certain narrative. I won't go into specifics, but the idea is that they've done a really good job at putting that in my head, and so now subconsciously I'm seeing that in my reality. So now I need to unlearn that, because I've been in college for about 2 years now. Community college isn't as bad, but I would say that there are so where I live, I live in California, so that says a lot. But it can affect your perception of reality and your overall happiness, because when you see everything as a threat and that people are, they don't like me, or all this chatter in your head, it breeds negativity, and when you breed negativity, you're gonna attract that. Of course, I just actually went, but I knew that this idea that you attract this into your life, the negativity in your life. Um, let's see. I just lost my. Trying to think of something, but the reality is, like, so you have negative thoughts, right? And um, I used to have a lot of negative thoughts about my own reality, that I couldn't change who I was, that I was stuck in this anxious state of mind where I was afraid of everything. I would have panic attacks forever, and the reality is you can change your life if you stay focused. And perception too. Perception is amazing. How you could walk down the street and you see people, right? And you're like, oh, this person's judging me. This person thinks this about me. But the reality is, it's all about how you view that person. You could change that around. You can flip that into a positive mindset. So you could go down the street like, this person thinks I'm awesome. This person thinks I'm great. You got to be careful, because you don't want to be egotistical. That's the other flip side of the coin, right? You can be positive. People are cheering me on. People are seeing the best in me and believe in the vision that I have. So if you see reality like that, and you see it as an opportunity that these people are actually, they want you to be successful, they want to help you out, it's all about that mindset that you have. Because I was starting to get into this kind of almost negative subconscious mindset that, if I go to a certain city, go to a certain area, like I did a video about working in a wealthy area, Carlsbad. I've been to Carlsbad my entire life, but you start to kind of think of, maybe it's self-consciousness. You start to think like, dang, look at all these people, wealthy, nice cars. Look at myself. And so you start to compare, and you're subconscious mind, your thoughts are saying like, oh, you're poor, and you don't belong here, or you look different, all this BS stuff, but it's all about how you perceive your reality, because you could flip on this side like, I belong here, I'm the one, I'm going to make it here. It's all about the dialogue you have in your head. And as we know, dialogue and context changes everything. If we don't have proper context about a certain situation that happens before us, we're just guessing out of thin air. And at that point, we could make a something that's totally out of context, and then we set ourselves up for negativity because we're just like, thinking about the worst case scenario about what's going to happen and how these people are. And it's all about having faith in your perception of reality, and believing in positive things, because negative things are only going to drive you down. So what I'm working on now is just kind of this mantra that perception creates reality, perception creates reality, that uh, it depends on how I see things, in terms of like, let's say, like today I was walking down the street in different neighborhoods, right? There's different types of people, different jobs and whatnot. But if I let that get to me, thinking that, oh, they think you're rich, they think you're a snobbish person, they think you're this, and all this stuff, but it's all perception. So if I say perception creates reality, and then I have a choice to perceive how I want things to perceive, especially if I don't know, if I don't have that context, then I can change my mindset. And so I can walk down the street, instead of being anxious, like everybody's out to get me, I can be like, well, no, maybe not. People are out to get to me. So it's actually really having a good impact. And it's great that I'm becoming more conscious of this, because I was starting to get to a point where it's like, wow, breeding almost social anxiety, where I didn't have that, or I did, but I started to build it. It's like public speaking. I started to develop confidence postures about, when you go up in front of an audience, how do you speak to them? How do you talk with people? How to talk with people more effectively? But the thing is, you got to keep an eye on that, because old habits die hard. Because, you could go back to that old lifestyle of, thinking people are out to get you, that they're judging you. And it's easy to do that, especially when you think everything's set up, right? Because you think that, oh, I don't have to worry about that anymore, I solved the problem. But the reality is, it's like you got to keep an eye on that, or it'll come back to you. So the idea of today was perception creates reality, and that you're in control of how you perceive others' actions, and that it's really up to you. If you want to live a positive life, then it makes sense to view people as actually helping you, even though they might not be helping you, especially when you don't know exactly what they're thinking or how they're perceiving the reality that they face, right? So someone across the street, someone in a car, somebody talking, if they say something negative, or they give you a negative expression, that doesn't necessarily mean they're directing it towards you. It could be something in their own mind that they're thinking about at that moment in time. But if we don't ask that person about, what are you thinking about exactly, then you're just guessing, and that creates more anxiety, because there's an infinite amount of possibilities to what the person could be thinking about. And if we only see what's on the surface, then we're not really understanding the true context of the situation, and that just sets up that's a pattern of negativity, and it just builds, and you end up becoming a really anxious person, self-conscious and worried about what people think about you. And even the most successful people, I think, have a struggle with that, and kind of a battle in terms of what people think. So I think I'll lay it off there, but this is Random Stuff with Alex Hughes signing off, and hope you guys have a great day. Thank you very much.